What's happening? A happy Friday to everybody out there. Thanks for watching and or listening. It is very much appreciated, as I always say. Of course, this podcast, this episode is being recorded. I've got to work at 98.5, the Sports Hub tonight from 6 until 10. If you want to check that out, again, 98.5 tonight from 6 to 10. So I got to record this podcast. I said this last week. We're going to record Friday podcasts through January 3rd because of the schedule I've got. So same content. Hopefully you enjoy. We're going to get into the Buffalo Bills game, of course, and preview that. We're going to get into the rest of my coaching staff. Wednesday's podcast, I told you, my number one option, if there's not a miraculous turnaround over the next 3 weeks, my number one option is to blow it up and bring Mike Vrabel in. What would the rest of the staff look like? I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But first, some unfortunate Patriots news. Over the past 24 hours, Christian Barmore was placed on the non-football injury list. And according to a Patriots statement, Barmore experienced some recurring symptoms that required further evaluation. So some reoccurring symptoms going on from the blood clots. And obviously this stinks. You never want to hear somebody taking a step back from their treatment. And I'm sure Barmore he talked about it. He felt like he was through the toughest part of this whole thing. And he had gone through that challenge and found a renewed love of life and appreciation for what he does. Got back onto the football field. Didn't look like the same guy. And I think many of us figured he would not look like the same guy. But he was out there playing the game he loved. And he worked his butt off to get back out on the field. But it's health before anything else. Health is number one. Hopefully, he gets back at some point down the road. But let's talk about the individual, the human being, and just hope that he is healthy again and that these reoccurring symptoms finally go away and he can be a healthy young man. He's 25 years old. So unfortunate news for Christian Barmore, but we all hope that he returns at some point in the game of football. If not, we just hope he gets healthy first and foremost. So thoughts with Christian Barmore during a very, very difficult time. All right, we discussed Mike Vrabel on Wednesday, and I left you a cliffhanger. I left you a tease. What would I do with the rest of the staff? I blow it up. Currently, what's going on right now, I blow it up, and I bring Mike Vrabel in. What else would I do with the coaching staff? Andrew Callahan brought up a point, and this is something that I actually mentioned going back 11 months ago in one of the podcasts I did on Mike Vrabel, and I actually went back today, and I had to kind of jot down some things, revisit the podcast I did back in like January or February on Mike Vrabel and when he got fired by Tennessee. And I went back, and my plan A was Adam Peters, GM, Mike Vrabel, head coach. And at the time, I talked about Vrabel hiring Matt LaFleur in Tennessee. Of course, LaFleur went on to Green Bay. He's now considered one of the best head coaches in football. He also promoted Arthur Smith. So Arthur Smith is a Mike Vrabel guy. We see what Arthur Smith is doing with the Pittsburgh Steelers with Justin Fields at first and now Russell Wilson. And then I heard Andrew Callahan bring that up, and I forgot. I forgot those details, and I forgot talking about it 11 months ago. I can't remember everything we do, right? So it was funny because I heard Callahan bring that up. I was like, it's a great point. And then I went back listening to the podcast from way back when, and I said, oh, I did actually look that stuff up, and I did actually mention that as part of the reason why I would have hired Mike Vrabel back then. It remains now, right? Hiring Matt LaFleur, hiring Arthur Smith. Those two guys both have looked like very good offensive coordinators, very good offensive minds. Arthur Smith did not have the best time in Atlanta as a head coach. You could look at the quarterback. You could look at some of the talent as the main problem because what he's doing now in Pittsburgh, as I mentioned. But some guys are just really, really good, if not great offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators, and can never figure it out as a head coach. Matt LaFleur, very good offensive coordinator, very good head coach. But those two names aren't the only names I wanted to mention. Mike Vrabel also hired Shane Bowen as his defensive coordinator. He had Dean Pease there at first, a veteran, old school defensive coordinator, a guy that Vrabel knew, right, from the Patriots days and all of that stuff. Well, then Vrabel named Shane Bowen as his defensive coordinator. And I looked some things up on Shane Bowen, and I found this article at Giants.com because Bowen is currently the Giants defensive coordinator. And here's what Giants.com wrote when Bowen was named the new DC in New York. In 2023, Bowen boasted the number one defense in red zone scoring, goal-to-go scoring, and third down conversion rate in the red zone. Tennessee ranks second inside the 30 touchdown efficiency and opponent third and short conversions. From 2021 to 2023, when Bowen was the DC of Tennessee, the Titans surrendered the fewest rushing yards in the NFL, in a league low 3.7 rushing yards per carry. They allowed 33 rushing touchdowns in that span. Only the Ravens and the Patriots gave up fewer with 30 apiece. Overall, the Titans allowed 106 touchdowns from scrimmage in Bowen's 3 seasons as defensive coordinator, the 7th fewest in the NFL. So when we talk about Mike Vrabel, we always want to focus on the main guy. We always want to focus on the head coach. But the fact is, Mike Vrabel, when he was in Tennessee, did a pretty damn good job of staffing that football team. He found guys. He knew. He had that network. He understood who he wanted to bring in. He brought Matt LaFleur in. He knew Matt LaFleur was going to be gone, probably quickly. So he had Arthur Smith there in the wings waiting. LaFleur leaves, Arthur Smith right there to replace him. Dean Pease, experienced guy, right? Help Vrabel figure some things out. The trusted, old school, wise hand for the first year. And then you move on from Dean Pease. You move on at defensive coordinator. What do? You end up going with Shane Bowen. And so Mike Vrabel has a history as the head coach of an NFL team to be able to staff. And that is important, as we've learned, because we see what happened, right? We see what happened with, the Patriots in the last few years, even with Belichick, the Matt Patricia, Joe Judge debacle, what's going on this year. So I want a head coach who has a network and understands what's important to the staff and has a history, a resume of finding good assistant coaches / coordinators. Now, I don't want to mislead you. Dean Pease left the Titans in 2019. Bowen didn't take over until 2021. So I don't want to mislead you. But the idea was Vrabel starts with a grizzled veteran at defensive coordinator. And then eventually in 2021, he lands on Shane Bowen, and Bowen does a good job. So what would my staff look like if I'm Robert Kraft and I bring in Mike Vrabel? Get to that in a minute. Don't forget, help us out. Like this channel. Like this podcast. As you watch this video, if you hit that thumbs up, it helps us with the algorithm. YouTube sees that, and they send this video out to more people. Also, comment. YouTube will see the comments. If there are a lot of comments, they will do the same thing. The algorithm will kick in. This video will be pushed to other people on YouTube. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 5,500 subscribers on this channel. We've got a long way to go. We're not going to make our New Year's Day goal, but hopefully we make some gains here over the next week or two. So like, comment, subscribe, and if you're listening or watching on Spotify, rate and review. Apple Pods, you could also get involved as well. Give us some stars there. All right, so what would the rest of the staff look like under Mike Vrabel? I'm going to Josh McDaniels. And I know people who have been listening to this podcast or watching me for a long time here over the past year plus. Some might say, Nick, you wanted to get rid of everybody that was involved with the Patriots, and now you're saying Mike Vrabel, and now you're saying Josh McDaniels. Well, I wanted Vrabel last year, and I mentioned why. Mike Vrabel went to Ohio State to coach. He went to the Houston Texans to coach. He obviously was the head coach of Tennessee. He leaves Tennessee. He's asked to leave Tennessee, and he ends up going to Cleveland to be a consultant on that staff. So he's somebody who has moved around. And he did not begin his career as a Patriot. He began it with the Steelers. He came over, had the best year of his career in New England, but then he, of course, was traded to Kansas City. So he's been all over the league, and he's been in college football. So it's not just, oh, he came up through the Patriot system, he learned the Patriot way, and he does this and that. Mike Vrabel is not a quote-unquote Patriot way kind of guy. As far as McDaniels, there were two issues with me with Josh McDaniels if he was going to end up being Gerard Mayo's offensive coordinator. Number one, it was the relationship with Gerard Mayo. Is it good? I don't know. McDaniels is very loyal, as we know, to Bill Belichick. Belichick and Mayo are not on the same page. We know that relationship has had some issues because Bill found out about the contract, Mayo, and some of the things that happened inside the walls last year. So the Mayo-Belichick relationship is not good right now. And I was not comfortable with the idea of having a Belichick loyalist on Gerard Mayo's staff. That would have been a disaster. And I don't think McDaniels, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think McDaniels would want to be on the staff. Again, I could be wrong. But now, if you're bringing Mike Vrabel in to be the head coach, Gerard Mayo's not here anymore. The other issue I had was with the offense, right? The Earhart-Perkins offense. I was tired of it. We were all tired of it. I would not bring McDaniels back to run that same offense. I just wouldn't. I would hope that Josh McDaniels spent this past year looking at other offenses. I would hope that Josh McDaniels could grow as an offensive coordinator and adapt his style of play calling to somebody like Drake May versus a Tom Brady or Mac Jones. And there are examples of McDaniels doing that, right? McDaniels had Cam Newton. Cam Newton wasn't great that year, but McDaniels had to work the playbook around Cam Newton. He found ways to not make that offense in 2020 a complete disaster week in and week out. And then McDaniels had Mac Jones in 2021. We saw what he did with Mac. Mac's best year by far in the NFL probably will end up being his best year of his career with Josh McDaniels. McDaniels also worked it with Jacoby Brissett. Remember when Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt and last second the Patriots found out that Brissett had to start at quarterback? I think it was that Thursday night. Was it Thursday night? I think it was Thursday night against Houston. And Patriots end up winning. And McDaniels did what he could do with Brissett at the time. He also worked with Tim Tebow in Denver, right? He drafted Tim Tebow. We know Tim Tebow wasn't a good NFL quarterback. But my point is, Josh McDaniels has shown interest and he has shown the ability to work with quarterbacks that are athletic. He worked with Tebow. He worked with Cam. He was able to work with Brissett. Brissett's not a super athlete, but he's more athletic than your typical pocket passer, right? And so I would give credit to Josh McDaniels and say he's a very smart offensive mind. He would be able to figure it out. He would pour over film of Josh Allen, and he would talk with Drake May. He'd look at what worked this year on film with May. And I think McDaniels would be open to the idea of, hey, I'm going to take this quarterback and utilize his strengths. If McDaniels was not going to do that, if McDaniels just wants to bring back the old offense, I'm out on McDaniels. The caveat is that he is willing to change and adapt his style to Drake May. Take what worked this year, add to it for 2025. Because Josh McDaniels is a very good offensive coordinator. Again, the year with Mac Jones, 2008 with Matt Castle. I know everybody just chalks up McDaniel's success to Tom Brady. I don't. I think he's a good play caller. He's a good play caller. There's no perfect play caller in football. I think he's pretty damn good. And here's the biggest part of the McDaniel stuff. Not only is he a good offensive coordinator, I consider him a really good offensive coordinator. But I would also say that McDaniels brings stability, and we can't overlook this. McDaniels is not going to be a head coach in the NFL. I think he's done, right? He was a disaster in Denver. He was a disaster in Vegas. Unequivocally, Josh McDaniels is not head coach material. But that doesn't mean, as I mentioned a little while ago, that Josh McDaniels can't be a very good offensive coordinator. We have seen him be one of those. And so McDaniels, he's not a flight risk. If you want stability around Drake May, you want a very good play caller to be with Drake May for the next, 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe McDaniels eventually goes down to the college ranks. But if you want McDaniels, who lives in the area and I think wants to stay in the area, if you want McDaniels, he comes in and he brings stability. He's not going to be leaving anytime soon, which means Drake May will have the same voice and the same play caller to work with for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Look, I love the idea of Brian Daboll because of his experience with Josh Allen. The problem is, I think as soon as Brian Daboll gets a head coaching offer, he's out of town. And I think Daboll has a much, much better shot at getting that head coach interview than McDaniels, because Daboll, let's not get it twisted, Daniel Jones was not his quarterback. He inherited Daniel Jones. And people will look back at the time of the first year with Daboll when Daniel Jones, listen, people overstated how good he was, but Daniel Jones wasn't an abject failure in Daboll's first year. They'll look back at what he did in Buffalo with Josh Allen, and they'll say, we're going to take a shot on Brian Daboll. That's much more likely than McDaniels. And so if you hire Brian Daboll to come in with Mike Vrabel, well, what happens if Daboll leaves after 2025? Now you're talking about Drake May having 3 different offensive coordinators in his first 3 seasons as an NFL quarterback. That's not what I want. If I'm going to make a change, if I'm changing from this current staff, I want to go to somebody that I feel is going to be here for a sustained amount of time with Drake May. McDaniels would be that guy. Now, there's, again, the legit question of whether or not he would be adaptable. He would have to be if I'm giving him the job. And I think he has the chance to do that. I think he's smart enough to do that. Defensive coordinator. I would go at Matt Eberflus. Now, Matt Eberflus had a link with McDaniels. McDaniels, when he was leaving New England for that split second to go to Indianapolis, Eberflus was going to be his defensive coordinator. McDaniels in the 23rd hour, as we know, changed his mind, stayed in New England, but Eberflus stayed in Indy. He stayed as the defensive coordinator. And very much like I just talked about with McDaniels, Eberflus would bring stability. If you want a defensive coordinator who's not going to get a head coaching shot anytime soon, Eberflus fills that bucket. I mean, I don't think any owner is going to be running to Matt Eberflus after what we saw play out on Thanksgiving. I think it's going to take him at least 2 or 3 years to rebuild his reputation throughout the game. He doesn't have the kind of excuses that Daboll has. He could just point to, look, we had Daniel Jones. He wasn't my quarterback. I never had a chance to have a good quarterback. I never had a chance to have my guy. Meanwhile, we lost Saquon Barkley, the best player on the team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Eberflus, he had weapons. He had his chance. He's a defensive guy. He made the offensive coordinator hire. That backfired. So, I mean, you look at it, the Waldron thing was bad, and we just remember that Thanksgiving where he just decided not to call a timeout as the clock struck 0. So, again, the idea of stability, but it's not just you're bringing somebody in because you want stability. You're bringing in a respected coordinator that has done a good job, if not very good job, in his past with that gig. And so you're bringing in somebody who's good and has shown that he's good and is not an immediate flight risk. You have Vrabel, McDaniels, and Eberflus. That should be your coaching staff for the next at least 2 to 3 years. And you can bring some normalcy back instead of the constant turnover, which you don't want. The track record of Eberflus and Indy. This is from Colts.com, J.J. Stankovitz. This is when Eberflus left Chicago. Here's what Colts.com's Stankovitz wrote. The Colts were a top 10 scoring defense in 3 of Eberflus's 4 seasons in Indianapolis and had a top 10 takeaway total every season from 2018 to 2021. That emphasis on takeaways culminated with 33 in 2021, the second most in the NFL. Under the watch of Eberflus, whose defensive background is in coaching linebackers, Darius Leonard blossomed into a perennial All-Pro and one of the most accomplished ball hawks at any position in the league. DeForest Buckner earned his first career first-team All-Pro honor in 2020, while Kenny Moore II developed into one of the league's most versatile cornerbacks, culminating in his first career Pro Bowl selection in 2021. Eberflus said prior to the 2021 season, the most important positions in his defense are the 3 technique, which is Buckner, Will linebacker, which is Leonard, and slot corner, which would be Moore. All three players, among others, have flourished in Eberflus's scheme. Zach Hicks of Sports Illustrated wrote that Eberflus's defense ranked 7th in overall DVOA in 2021, and his unit has consistently been among the league leaders against the run and enforcing turnovers. So Eberflus has a track record. He has that track record. Now, if you don't want Eberflus, you could go to Shane Bowen, the guy who was with Vrabel from 2021 to 2023 down in Tennessee, right? Because if we're going off the idea, if the premise is that the Giants blow it up, Shane Bowen, he's going to be available. So maybe you bring Bowen in. Maybe it's not Eberflus and maybe it's Bowen. I would take either of those two guys. Now, if Bowen does a good job, he's more of a flight risk than Eberflus. But if you go with the Vrabel, McDaniels, Eberflus trio, you have a staff that is stable. You have a staff that is experienced. You have a staff that has proven they could be good, if not really good, at the job that they do. Mike Vrabel has shown that he can be a really good head coach in the league. A 12-win season, got to an AFC championship game, former coach of the year. He is a proven head coach. Josh McDaniels is a proven offensive coordinator. Matt Eberflus is a proven defensive coordinator. No more questions. None of that stuff. None of it. You've got that trio at the top with a head coach that has shown the ability to find staff members with the idea of just in case your coordinators move on, you have other talent underneath those coordinators. You also have three guys that have been head coaches. Now, Eberflus and McDaniels weren't good, but they at least have the experience of running a program. And I think that matters. I mean, compare the Vrabel, McDaniels, Eberflus staff, now that I laid it out, to Mayo, AVP, and DeMarcus Covington. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Not even close. Some other things. Could you keep Van Pelt as quarterback's coach? I would ask. If I'm Vrabel, I'd ask, would McDaniels be comfortable with that? Would Van Pelt be comfortable with that? If Van Pelt was willing to be quarterback's coach and take that demotion, so to speak, but stick with Drake May and stick here in New England, and McDaniels would say, I only have to focus on being the offensive coordinator. If you had McDaniels as offensive coordinator and Van Pelt as your quarterback's coach, now again, you've got people who have proven to be very good at the jobs that they do. Vrabel, McDaniels, Eberflus, Van Pelt as your quarterback's coach. Maybe you bring Shane Bowen in not to be the defensive coordinator with Eberflus, but maybe you bring him in to be on the defensive staff. Now you have somebody who is a proven defensive coordinator, has had success in the NFL on that side of the ball underneath Matt Eberflus. So you've got McDaniels and AVP, Eberflus and Bowen. I don't know how you could do better than that given the options that you could have this offseason. The biggest question is, and this is the biggest question, would Robert Kraft be willing to pay that staff? Because that staff is going to be a very, very expensive staff. And we know the history. I get it. I understand. But is Kraft at the point that he's so frustrated that this team has looked the way it's looked since 2019 on the balance of those 5 years? Is he so damn frustrated that he's like, screw it, I'm going to do what I have to do to make this football team good, or as good as they can be in 2025? And with that in mind, I'm going and I'm getting the best coaching staff that I can get. Now, we don't have time to cover the front office. I've got some ideas on that, but I just wanted to give you the coaching staff. The main trio. If Kraft is willing to pay, I would love, again, if there's not some miraculous turnaround over the next 3 weeks, I would love to blow this thing up, and I would bring in Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels, Matt Eberflus. I would have AVP and Shane Bowen as the guys that are the right-hand men for each coordinator. That's what I would do. I think Mike Vrabel gives you a better chance to get free agents. He has proven that he can build a culture in an NFL locker room. Guys love to play for him. He's got the resume. I think free agents would be much more bought into the idea of playing for Mike Vrabel than Gerard Mayo after what we've seen this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion. And here's the question you've got to ask. If it's not Vrabel, then who would it be? Like, there's no guarantee that anyone will be better. If it's not Vrabel, there's no guarantee that Gerard Mayo will ever prove to be as good of a head coach as Mike Vrabel has proven himself to be. Even if you want to go out there and get one of the younger, sexy names like a Ben Johnson, he's unproven. There's no guarantee that Ben Johnson will be better or even as good as Mike Vrabel has been in the head coach position. I mean, this is your opportunity to find somebody who is proven and to add experience with that guy. The opportunity is there for the Patriots to build a damn good staff. It's laying right there in front of them. Will they do it? We'll see. All right, I'm going to get to a quick Buffalo Bills Patriots game preview coming up on Sunday. Of course, the game was moved back to 4:25 or 4:05. I think it's 4:05. We'll get to that in a minute. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help us out. Support the channel. Let's build this thing the way we've done over the past, 16, 17 months. Let's continue to move forward. Like, comment, subscribe. That'll help us. Doesn't cost you any money, and it doesn't take much time at all. All right, if the Patriots defense survives on Sunday, I think it's one of two things. Maybe three. A Christmas miracle. If this Patriots defense, from what we've seen from the defense on the field, what we've seen from DeMarcus Covington, if they can survive on Sunday, it could be just a Christmas miracle. It also could be that Buffalo just didn't care. Buffalo said, it's the Patriots. We're going to win this game. They don't take New England seriously. And all of a sudden, it's the fourth quarter and they have a fight on their hands. And I guess you could slide in some weather. It's going to be super cold. Maybe something crazy happens. Maybe we have another wind game. And all of a sudden, you're like, wow, this is kind of nuts to watch play out. Other than that, I just don't see it. The Buffalo offense is a machine. Josh Allen is sixth in passing touchdowns with 25. He also has 11 rushing touchdowns, so he has a total of 36 touchdowns this year with still 3 games to play. He's tied for the third fewest interceptions in football with 5. He is 7th in passer rating. He is 1st in QBR. He's 8th in yards per attempt, so he's not dinking and dunking. He is 2nd in EPA, which is expected points added. And when you look at this passing offense for the Bills, I mean, they're just tremendous. They are the second best passing offense in football, according to DVOA. When you look at pressure rate, they've got the 11th lowest pressure rate in football. When you look at ESPN's statistic analytic of pass block win rate, the Buffalo Bills are 6th. They're almost top 5 in pass block win rate. Their offensive tackles are really good. Deion Dawkins on the left side is a tremendous left tackle. Spencer Brown on the right side. Spencer Brown likes to get wrapped up in some shenanigans. He plays right up to the whistle, maybe a little bit after the whistle. Almost every Buffalo Bills game I watch, Spencer Brown is in some kind of kerfuffle with somebody on the defense. Every time. But when you look at it, Deion Dawkins, again, that analytic, the pass block win rate, Dawkins is 6th in the NFL. Brown is 18th. So the Buffalo Bills have 2 top 20 pass blocking tackles. And you think about New England and their inability to do anything with the pass rush and Josh Allen's mobility, you tell me how the Patriots are going to be able to get after Josh Allen. Very difficult task. And if you think, well, hey, maybe you just try to force them to run the football. Here's the unfortunate part. The Buffalo Bills are also a very good run offense. I mentioned that their passing offense is 2nd in DVOA. Their rushing offense is 5th. So they have a top 3 passing offense and a top 5 rushing offense. Now, you could look at Josh Allen, who helps that. But also don't overlook James Cook, who's a pretty explosive running back. The Buffalo Bills' run game is third in success rate. They're eighth in yards per carry with 4.6. So not only are they a very good passing offense, they're a very good running offense, which means they are a very good overall offense. They're the second best offense in football, according to DVOA. And when you look at some of the numbers that people will recognize, some of the old school numbers, the Bills have the third best red zone offense in football. The Patriots have the 23rd ranked red zone defense. So you got the Bills with the third best red zone offense going against the 23rd ranked red zone defense. That doesn't feel like it's a good thing. And then the Bills are also eighth on third down. So they're incredibly efficient. They're a top 10 third down offense. The Patriots, if you're wondering, are 24th in the league on third down defense. So the Buffalo Bills are a freaking wagon offensively. And Joe Brady, by the way, if you want to talk about Josh McDaniels and his ability to adapt, Joe Brady was the OC for Joe Burrow at LSU, and now he's the OC for Josh Allen. Two completely different quarterbacks, but yet Joe Burrow flourished at LSU, and Josh Allen is having an MVP season in Buffalo. So if Joe Brady can adapt his playbook, don't tell me Josh McDaniels can't adapt his playbook. But you've got an offense that's been a monster. Passing, rushing, and then you look at the numbers, red zone, third down. They've been one of the best offenses in football. And meanwhile, we know what the Patriots defense has been. If I'm DeMarcus Covington, screw it. I'm going super aggressive. I'm going to be super aggressive. Because if I just sit back and allow Josh Allen to pick me apart, it's going to be a long day. I would rather go down on my shield, and I would go out there and I'd say, we're going to blitz. We're going to do some funky stuff up front, because if we go vanilla, we're going to get murdered. We're going to get outlined in chalk on Sunday. So be super aggressive. Now, as far as the Patriots offense, can Van Pelt step up after the Arizona debacle that we saw last week? I thought Van Pelt had been getting better, right? We had talked about it. Last week was a huge step back for Van Pelt in this offense. They looked unprepared. They were not focused. It was just a weird game plan from Van Pelt. Now, yes, some of that is the offensive line not helping him, but it just looked like it was a complete mess from the jump. The guys weren't ready to play. The scheme wasn't up to snuff. They got out-coached thoroughly last weekend. And guess what? This is going to be a pretty tough matchup for Van Pelt, because when you look at the Bills defensively, they're 11th in passing DVOA. So they've got almost a top 10 passing defense. They don't get a ton of pressure. I mean, they're 18th in pressure rate. However, I think that has to do more with what they do defensively. They don't blitz a lot. Now, that might change, as we've seen, right? I mean, Arizona doesn't play a lot of man coverage. Sunday, they played a lot of man coverage because they looked at the Patriots and they said, we can play man against these receivers. So defenses have changed their approach. Sean McDermott is not known for changing his approach, the head coach of the Bills. He's not known as that kind of a guy. So, why are they 18th in pressure rate, but they're 12th in pass rush win rate? It's because they don't blitz. They're 29th in the league in blitzing. So they rely on four guys getting home. And when you rely on four guys getting home, you're not going to get home as often, theoretically, as a team that blitzes more than the 29th ranked blitz rate in the league. But as the pass rush win rate shows you, that analytic tells you that Buffalo's four-man pass rush, their regular old pass rush, does a good job against one-on-one blocking. This is going to be a mano-a-mano type game for the Patriots offensive line, and it starts on the interior. Because when you look at what Buffalo does best, pass rush win rate, it's coming from the inside. Ed Oliver is 10th in that statistic. Daquan Jones is 16th. So you've got two guys on the interior of the defensive line that can get after the quarterback, which of course means Ben Brown's got to be good. Maybe Cole Strange if he plays. Your center has to be good. Leighton Robinson has to be better on the left side. He was great last week, by the way, and he's been much better since he's been at right guard full time. So I feel pretty good about Owenu. But Ben Brown, Leighton Robinson, big challenge with Oliver and Jones in the middle of that defense. It's going to be very difficult for the Patriots to run the football. Buffalo Bills' run defense has been good. Now, Matt Milano is questionable, so we got to keep an eye on that. But the rushing defense for the Bills is 7th in DVOA, so top 10 rushing defense. They're number one in all of football in stuff rate. So there could be a lot of no gains on Sunday. And again, that's because their interior defensive line is tough. The interior defensive line is tough. They open up some of those holes, right? And you get the linebackers, the safeties, the cornerbacks filling those gaps coming downhill because of Oliver and Daquan Jones opening things up. So it's going to be very difficult. First in stuff rate. They're 11th in run stop win rate. Again, the one-on-one blocking. Their one-on-one matchups, they can get to the quarterback, and their one-on-one matchups, they can stop the run. Overall, defensively, 10th best defense in football. But they aren't great in the red zone, and they're not great on third down. It's kind of weird. They're 10th in DVOA, but they're 18th in the red zone, 26th on third down. Now, what that means to me is that teams don't get a lot of opportunities in the red zone against the Bills because the DVOA is top 10, but the red zone on the third down defense isn't very good. So it's interesting when you look at those numbers, but inevitably, does it matter, right? I mean, does it really matter if Buffalo is not the best red zone defense when the Patriots are the 30th ranked red zone offense? Probably not going to matter much. It could in a perfect world, but the Patriots have a tough time getting out of their own way in the red zone. And when you look at third down, same thing. The Bills are 26th on third down, but the Patriots are 29th third down offense. So can you take advantage of those things? The Patriots have not proven that they can. And if the Patriots can't run, then they're going to be in trouble. Maybe you say the Patriots can force some turnovers. That's another issue. Buffalo is tied for first in the NFL in turnover differential. They're a plus 18 in the turnover margin. They have the fewest giveaways in the NFL. I mentioned Allen only has 5 interceptions. The Bills have only 7 giveaways this football season. So they usually don't gift you the football. Will the Patriots be galvanized for Gerard Mayo? Will they be galvanized by Gerard Mayo? All the questions in the locker room this week about Mayo's future, will that motivate the team? Will they get a little bit of juice from that? I'll have to see it to believe it. And I doubt that Buffalo will overlook the Patriots because they got whooped for so long by this organization. And they've got the Jets next week. So it's not like Buffalo has a huge challenge next week where they kind of overlook the Pats. They got the Pats, the Jets, the Pats. I'm sure Sean McDermott in that locker room, he is talking about the number 1 seed in the AFC. They're 2 games behind Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is a little banged up. I'm sure McDermott is preaching 1 seed, 1 seed, 1 seed, 1 seed. This thing ain't over yet. Finish strong. Be professional. Beat 2 of the worst teams in football the final 3 weeks of the season. Do this right. I'm sure that's his message. All right, prediction time. The Buffalo Bills are minus 14.5. It's a lot of points. I hate double-digit spreads. I'm afraid of them. If I were you, I would not bet this game. I hate double-digit spreads to the core. The over-under is 46.5. Now, because I do this for entertainment purposes, I've got to pick somebody, right? I've got to pick. Now, I'm 6-8 against the spread. I'm 7-7 straight up. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills, 31, the Patriots, 16. I go Bills 31, Patriots 16. If that's the case, the Bills just cover. Again, it's 14.5. My score, Bills win by 15. They also just get over the over-under, which is 46.5. My score, you got 47. I would not bet a double-digit spread. I hate those games. A lot of things can happen. Backdoor covers. Something crazy happens. Who knows? The Bills get out to a big lead. They play some of their backups, and all of a sudden the Patriots, score a touchdown or two in the fourth quarter to come back and stay within 14.5. But right now, my pick, Bills 31, Patriots 16. Everybody have a great weekend. Hopefully, it's a game on Sunday that we can somewhat enjoy. We will be back on Monday at 3 p.m. live here on YouTube. Until then, be well. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.